Okay, thank you. One of the things that we'd like to talk to today is how we've actually developed one of the forums within 365. 365 wasn't something that I really knew much about, and I'm talking about just going back to August time. And I have lots of different types of students at final year, second year, first year, and master's programs. So I was thinking about how can I use this. Within the business school, we were also tasked with trying to work in a different way. So one of the first things that we needed to do was think about how I could move from a paper-based system of evaluating students or students evaluating their own learning and move that into an online system without losing anything. Because I think when you're used to doing something in a particular way, there's that fear that you're going to lose something along with it. And I wasn't quite sure, so I was experimenting, if you like. And Chris here sort of helped me during that sort of experimentation. So for me, I wasn't sure how inclusive that paper-based approach was, because normally I'd hand something out in a seminar, perhaps I hand it out before, students would fill something in, bring it along, and then we'd discuss it. Sometimes we'd work in small groups within a seminar activity. But clearly there wasn't any real opportunity to put any multimedia in it, and I didn't feel that confident to put any multimedia in it because I teach in the business school, and probably multimedia is probably far away from my comfort zone. So I'm starting from that point. I'm probably a bit of a technophobe, but I've moved on quite a lot since August. A couple of things that we need to think about was what I was doing. So I started somewhere which was probably my largest class, final year students. So there's 120 students, and they're organised over 5 separate seminar groups, which means I also have tutors who are collaborating with me and, you know, disseminating some of the teaching material, and that was important to consider, as well as the fact that we've got students in a second or third language, where English isn't their first language, and all the other areas in terms of sort of diversity. So it's quite a challenging unit. That's without the NSS and everything else sort of going on top of those things. How did it fit in? So previously, when it was a paper-based, I needed something at the very beginning because we have top-up students coming in or direct entry students coming in, and I needed for them to feel included in the cohort straight away, which is quite a difficult task considering the size and the diversity. So I started to think about 365. I didn't know anything about it at all. I didn't have any training on it at all. And I decided that I would just play around with it, and if I got it wrong, I got it wrong, and then I'd go and ask Chris, and we'd try and work something out together. I wanted to use it again during the middle of the module, and somewhere at you know, that would replicate what I did paper-based, so somewhere just before an assessment. So not moving too far from my model of delivery in the paper-based sort of environment. So believe me when I say I didn't know what was going to happen when I did actually click on the thing. I didn't know what 365 was. I didn't know what was in it, and I didn't know what any of it meant. I didn't know how it linked to any of teaching. I don't think I'd actually used any of it in terms of an administrator contacting me either. It was a complete zero knowledge base that I was starting from. But I knew that I have a two semester or 2-term module, and I have to introduce students to the module over 2 terms. So at the very beginning, for me, it was really important to be able to give an individual student almost a picture, if you like, a visual picture now of what they were going to do over that over the 2 terms. And playing around with it, I knew that I could send the link, whatever I created. So I went into forms. I thought, what's this? And it was something called a quiz. So I thought, well, what does this do? and I really was quite afraid at this point. So I enlisted the help. I needed somebody to send it to because I didn't trust myself to send it to a student because I didn't want to look like I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't know what it looked like for the student. And it was important for me as a teacher to know what the student can see and what that experience might be. So Chris acted as my student and he was doing the student view, and then I could run and look with Chris what it looked like to whoever was going to use it. So that took a process. This looks far more complicated than it did. It's just we knew we needed to develop it from just one question. So basically, in the format that I've used it in very small segments, like 5 questions, or on the beginning of a module, I might use 20. But it's not in the format that I would use previously when it was paper-based. There's nothing like it. So I tested it with Chris. We refined the questions, playing around with what it could do, what it couldn't do. And I got more confident with it as I played around with it. One of my concerns as a lecturer was how much time is it going to blink and take me? Because if it's technology is wonderful, but I haven't got that much time, or I don't know, or seem to manage my time that well, it feels sometimes, but it didn't take me that long at all. It probably would take me the same amount of time if I had done it paper-based. And I think the more times I created these things, I was getting quicker and quicker at the delivery of it. So we did this little test, sent it to Chris, sent it back. I knew what the student view was. I knew how it felt for me as the tutor. And what I found, I was actually saving time, which was quite unusual. And I didn't expect that. So if I had any assumptions about what was going to happen, I wasn't going to expect that. I found that rather than me running around with all my photocopies going into a situation, it was always there, organised for me. I didn't need to do any organisation whatsoever. All the answers that students put were all in one place, which I thought was amazing, and I could access it at any point, anywhere where I was inside the university or at a conference, wherever I was, I could access it just through a simple link. What I then found, the bit that's easy to digest was my sort of light bulb moment, because I'm a visual learner, as I've learned over the years. I didn't know that when I was in school, but I am. And I found that rather than just a student getting a number, so putting a numerical value on a question I'd given them, the information could be displayed without me having to create it. So it comes in various formats, which we'll show you later. And that's automatically done for you within the program, which was, to me, absolute no-brainer. You know, I don't need to do anything at all. I didn't know at the time, but I found out that you could actually then identify individual students in order to map their learning journey. So if I wanted to go back in and see where a student was at that particular point of the module, I could, but I didn't know that function was originally in there. I mentioned about being 120 students. I've taught up to 400 students on a module, so collaboration was really important. We had to investigate this a little bit further, and what that meant was I didn't know whether my colleague who was delivering another seminar could actually see what I could see. And I believe in its original function it wasn't collaborative, but it certainly is now, and it's literally at a touch of a button. You can share it with, so I could share it with Chris, and I could share it with my colleague, so she could then display all the visual aspects in her seminar as well. You can make it, literally, there's a button on there, and you can make it visible to and usable for a student if they want to use it on their mobile or on a PC or laptop. And literally, it's just you just press the button. It is so simple. This is one of my students. So for the purposes of today, I used a different type of a smaller, shorter one, and it's halfway through a module. So this is a different module now I've developed it for, and I set them 5 or 6 questions, and Alex wanted to sort of share her immediate reaction as a student of using this halfway through. She's got an assessment in about 3 weeks' time, and she's working collaboratively with other students in a second language, so English isn't her first language, and it's her immediate reactions, and I think what she says about her learning experience, not just with mine, but with other people, is quite important. So I think Chris is going to put that on for us, hopefully. This is the techie bit. I didn't do this. Chris
Questionnaire can be used to introduce a module and give an idea what is the level of knowledge about specific topic. Another option is to use it halfway through the module to let students see their progress. Questionnaire at the end of the term could be a type of evaluation what we had learned. I like the idea of doing it online rather than paper-based, which is common at university. It's step-by-step process, from the easiest part to the most difficult. Also, doing it online gives opportunity to attach video, which helped me to make links to research project which I am doing at the moment. Images, graphs, and videos helped me to feel more engaged in answering questions. Furthermore, the benefit for international students is that if they don't understand any sentences or words, they can check it. Adding subtitles to video can help with accent and understudy pace. Overall, I think that this method is worth try.
So in terms of how I've used it, so that's Alex telling you how she received this link. She opened it up in her email. She can do it in her own time. You can use it with students during the session if you want. I know sometimes we might feel that a student's not going to fit it in. And then you're going to get into the classroom. So always give them the option of, you know, do you want to prepare it before or do it in the session? You can use it. It's so flexible. It's just amazing. So I use it to map their learning. So at the beginning, I've got a series of activities, which may be multiple choice, they may be true or false, it may be a piece of video clip I want to show them. And then the visual representation is for them to be able to access what everybody else has answered in the whole of the cohort. So I can sit there in a lecture or in a seminar, obviously the seminars are smaller sizes, and I can see, and I'm anonymous at this point, but I can see what other people are thinking in that room as a visual representation. How I map the learning journey is when that changes. As I'm lecturing or delivering the seminar, I can go back to particular points within that, call it a survey or questionnaire, within that forms to say, okay, this bit links to this, or this bit links to something we're going to do sort of later. So it's really accessible. It's easy to scaffold the learning, to build on top or go backwards. It's very, very simple, very, very flexible. But I think the main thing for me is how visual it is for a student. So this is what it looks like. So when you've clicked on, I go through the web browser and just put in Lincoln 365. It'll come up, I click on forms, and literally just click on and it'll say what questions. And you just click the question, add it in. Do you want a piece of video? Add it in. And it's just as easy as that. Yeah, so it's the easiest format in the world. You can add points. You don't necessarily... Sometimes a student wants to know how well they did. But for my first one, I didn't bother putting points in because I didn't need them to know. It was just, I just wanted them to see what it looked like as a student on that module. So you can see I've put some graphics in. It's dead simple. You don't have to go anywhere else off the screen. It's literally on the right-hand side. You click it and it comes up. And the same with the video material. Yeah, it's already there. You can access anything off YouTube at all at a click of a button. So I wanted, particularly because I'm dealing with a lot of second language learners, as I've said, the prompts and the images are really important, yeah, for them as learners. Yeah. So what we hope to do, so this is just me playing around with it, and I'm part of the inclusive education group. So I wanted to actually look at how inclusive is this. I've worked with it in terms of international students and language, but I need to know more about incorporating other students' learning needs, and do I need to do anything? The one thing that I do know is that I'm compliant. I'm okay in terms of data protection, and it's within the university platforms. I don't need to worry about anything that's stored or anything like that. It's all done for me. And of course, I'll be playing around with it to use in additional modules. And that's it, really. That's it. Thank you.